Hello and welcome back to the Pitchside Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes and all the content on the channel. And follow us on social media. The links are in the description. Listen to this episode on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other platform. And always join us for more on our road. You are welcome. Before we turn our attention to the weekend action, let's quickly talk about what happened yesterday in the Europa League. Of course, it was the second leg of the first round of 16 in the Europa League, and now we have our 8 qualifiers from that round. Sevilla going to be qualifying despite losing against Dinamo Zagreb 1-0. Of course, taking advantage of a 3-1 lead in the first leg. Of course, Lazio drawn against Porto 2-all, but because they lost the first leg 2-1 away, they will not qualify. Atalanta managed to continue their victory against Olympiacos and double their victory against Olympiacos from the first leg, beat them 3-0 away from home. And by the way, shout out to Ruslan Malinovsky, of course, with a great message about the current situation now in Ukraine during that game. Leipzig managed to defeat Real Sociedad 3-1 in Spain, and of course add to the first leg draw to qualify. Barcelona managed to defeat Napoli 4-2 in a really great game from them, really great display from Barcelona, probably one of their best as well, and continuing to improve, and probably they're now raising their stock as far as favourites in that competition goes. Rangers drawn against Borussia Dortmund 2-all, but because of their 4-2 victory in Germany last week, they qualify. Real Betis qualify against Zenit St. Petersburg despite drawing in Benito Villamarin 0-0. This game almost had a dramatic twist at the end of it, as Zenit St. Petersburg scored a goal late on, but it was cancelled by VAR. That goal would have taken the game, of course, to extra time. A game that was taken to extra time indeed was Sporting Braga versus Sheriff Tiraspol from Moldova. Sporting Braga defeated Sheriff 2-0 in the 90 minutes, thus taking the game to extra time and to penalties. And on penalties, Sporting Braga defeated Sheriff Tiraspol 5-4 or 3-2 on penalties. Turning our attention now to the action on the weekend, and we start obviously in the Premier League as usual. 2 games will not be played this week, by the way. Arsenal was scheduled to face Liverpool this weekend, and Chelsea was scheduled to face Leicester City. Quite 2 big games, in fact, in the Premier League this weekend. But of course, because Chelsea and Liverpool are both playing in the Carabao Cup final, it's going to take place this Sunday. Just to talk about that quickly, I think Liverpool might have an advantage to do this. They will be motivated, obviously, after their win in the midweek against Leeds United, making the Premier League race, returning to the Premier League race and really launching that whole operation on. Chelsea, they're not in a good period performance-wise, but they're definitely nicking the results when they can, of course, against Crystal Palace and then against Lille in a not very convincing performance in the Champions League, but they still got the victory anyway. I believe Liverpool will have a bit of advantage in that. But let's get back to the Premier League. Southampton play Norwich City, of course, on Friday. This is a game, straightly between a side that is, in a very good position at the moment, in the middle of the table, right in the middle of the table, 10th with 32 points, against Norwich with 17 points. At the bottom of the table, I doubt that Southampton will lose this one. I think Southampton are in a very poor position to win this. The Super Saturday kicks off with Leeds United playing against Tottenham, and this is 2 sides that, after the results of midweek, they're just clashing against each other, trying to see who's better. I mean, Tottenham obviously have different sort of ambitions than Leeds this season. Leeds United trying to escape the relegation zone and finish as good as they can, while Spurs are still trying to get themselves close into that top 4 battle. But I think the loss against against Burnley on the midweek, after a big win against City in the weekend, is definitely going to really try to change the momentum. Obviously, the statements of Conte about the club, about saying that he needs players, that the board of the club needs to assess how the club is performing, how the players are performing, were really shocking statements after the game against Burnley. But pretty much expected from someone like Conte, who really likes to be vocal and likes to get his demands done and dusted. If not, he will not like it and he will go away. That's what Conte does. I feel like Tottenham might have a little bit of advantage. Leeds are in a really, really bad position. Their form as of late is not good at all. The weakest defense in the Premier League. Tottenham can't have a better opponent to just face and win, I think, as far as the Premier League is concerned. Leeds come at a great time for Tottenham Hotspur and a bad time for them. They only won once out of the last 6 Premier League games, and even so, they didn't look particularly convincing doing that. They still conceded goals anyway. They failed to keep a clean sheet in the last 8 Premier League games, so that's another, I think, thing that Leeds United might want to think about really here. And with the danger, I think, of Son, Heung-min and Kane, of course, who I think were rejuvenated of the Man City game, and hopefully they will find their form here again. I think it will be Tottenham's way, and definitely this might be 3 points that will help Spurs get a bit of advantage, particularly with Arsenal not playing on the weekend. Brentford play Newcastle United at the Community Stadium. Brighton host Aston Villa. Crystal Palace host Burnley, and of course Manchester United hosting Watford. Both Manchester side playing. Man United hosting Watford. Man United after a disappointing draw in the Champions League against Atletico Madrid. A performance that is not worthy of a side that is fighting for the top 4, a side that has Cristiano Ronaldo in it. And again, this is a sort of a vengeful game for Manchester United, considering that Watford were the side that inflicted with them, one of the heaviest results they had this season. I mean, 4-1 against Watford back in November, back in the Solskjaer era. Of course, then things escalated quickly after that, and they simply couldn't keep him any more longer around. They replaced him with Ralf Rangnick, of course, and we know. And since Ralf Rangnick's arrival, things hasn't improved drastically, but there is some signs of positivity, and of course there's loads of signs of negativity in the Manchester United play. They still have some horrible defending. Sometimes the midfield is still not good, and the creativity, if it doesn't come from Bruno Fernandes, it feels like it doesn't come from anyone else in Manchester United. For Watford, they're just hitting the bottom of the barrel at the moment. They're literally near the bottom of the table, right ahead of Norwich with 18 points. And it doesn't look like they're going to be surviving, even with Roy Hodgson and all his expertise in the Premier League. I don't think they have enough in them to survive. This is a game that Watford or Manchester United should be winning, but again, we don't know. This is an inconsistent side. We don't know what you're getting with Manchester United, and you can get anything, ranging from a victory, to a humiliating loss, anyway. And of course, on Saturday as well, to finish off the action there, Everton hosts Manchester City, and this is a game for City coming after a tough weekend last time, of course. A whole rough week, of course, with the loss against Tottenham and Liverpool winning against Leeds, thus making the gap only 3 points and kicking the title race back on. I doubt that Everton can stand against Manchester City, but I think if Tottenham did, I think the other clubs will look at it and say, oh yeah, we have a chance against Man City, even if they are almost unbeatable or unplayable on the pitch. They are unplayable, but they're not unbeatable, it turned out. So maybe Everton will try and get something going for them. Frank Lampard, has been on the ups and downs, I would say, with Everton as of late. A good result once and a bad result once. He started with a victory over Brentford in the Cup, and then a loss to Newcastle, a victory against Leeds United. Again, expected, almost anybody can beat Leeds now. And then a loss against Southampton away from home, and now a game against Man City at home, which is a real tough test, I think, as far as Lampard is concerned. I don't think he wanted that test so early in his career, like his 5th or 6th game with the club, and he definitely looks like a kind of coach that will need time to progress with Everton. This is his 5th game with the club, and he's clashing straight away with Manchester City. I doubt that City will miss the opportunity to win again, and I doubt that it will lose 2 games in a row or even drop points for 2 games in a row. I think it's going to be a Man City win, but definitely Everton should give them something to think about leaving the Goodison Park. On Sunday, it is one game actually, because of course Chelsea were not going to be playing against Leicester City since the Carabao Cup final is going to be taking place. West Ham is going to face Wolverhampton, and Wolverhampton, of course, a side rejuvenated now after their victory against, or they're almost rejuvenated after their victory, against Leicester on the weekend. But in the midweek, they lost to Arsenal, which of course put a big damper on their spot for the fight for the top 4 spots. And West Ham as well, who dropped to 6th now after they were 4th, 4 points from Man United. But obviously the game is at home, and they don't want to miss more points at home like they did last weekend against Newcastle United when they draw 1-1. They want to win and keep the pressure on Arsenal and Man United. Even so, knowing that Arsenal still have a couple of games in hand, as well as the fact that Man United just feel a little bit better form at the moment than West Ham. For Arsenal and Liverpool, of course, that game is going to be taking place on March 16th, later down the line. But again, one last word for the Carabao Cup final. I still think Liverpool might win. This is going to be the first trophy for them, and realistically they could still win a quadruple if everything goes to plan. And this is something that we couldn't say about Liverpool in the last couple of seasons. To Spain now, and it is round 26 of La Liga. It kicks off with Levante vs Elche on Friday, Mallorca vs Valencia on Saturday, Getafe vs Deportivo Alaves, Real Vallecano playing against Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid hosting Celta Vigo, Villarreal hosting Espanyol, Sevilla hosting Real Betis in a Betis derby, that's on Sunday, Real Sociedad hosting Osasuna, Barcelona hosting Athletic Bilbao on Sunday, and Granada playing Cadiz on Monday. It was a pretty good week for Spanish football, European-wise. Atletico Madrid drawn against Manchester United, although the performance was the thing that people were mostly talking about. Barcelona defeated Napoli 4-2 in the Europa League. Sevilla qualified in the Europa League as well. It was a pretty decent week, I think, for Spain in European football, but we're back to the league, of course, for them, and back to the competition. I generally doubt that there is a competition on the title race anymore. Let's just put it this way. If Sevilla are going to keep dropping points, and this Betis derby seems to be an appropriate opportunity for Betis to take some ground on Sevilla and for Sevilla to just drop points and lose the race completely, I just feel that Sevilla are not showing a good face in La Liga anyway. We start from the top, obviously. Real Madrid played first out of those 4 or 5 teams at the top. They play against Rayo Vallecano away from home, a side that used to be close to European spots not far ago. Not far ago, for like 3 or 4 weeks ago, we're talking about Rayo Vallecano 6th and 7th and almost close to European spots and the Champions League spots, but then their form really fell off a cliff. They are winless in their last 4 La Liga games. They lost against Celta Vigo, against Osasuna, and lately against Elche, and those 4 losses were enough for Rayo Vallecano to see their stock drop and to see their place drop in La Liga from like 6th and 7th to 11th at the moment. I mean, they survived relegation, which I think is the biggest achievement they could do this season. I mean, although it's pretty tight behind them, you have sides that are on 30 points, sides on 29, 26 behind them. Like, the difference of points is not that big, but Rayo Vallecano, I think, achieved their goal by not surviving, and they could have done something extra, but again, the last month of action for them hasn't been that good. Real Madrid, after a weekend of hardships against Alaves, after a week of hardships, losing to PSG, the Champions League, the last time out, and then a victory against Alaves that was hard to get for an hour or so. They come against this game against Rayo Vallecano, knowing that it's not an easy game, and yes, they have 6 points of a gap over Sevilla, but they can't rest on their laurels, and they just can't allow themselves to just relax. As I can say, when they're not guaranteeing the title anyway. If they win against Rayo Vallecano and Sevilla drop points, that will be good, and they'll give them momentum, obviously, ahead of the rest of the season, and most importantly, ahead of the second leg of the Champions League round of 16, which will see them play PSG at the Bernabeu. Atletico Madrid are the second side that is playing, of course, chronologically speaking, out of the top table. They play against Celta Vigo, They will take hopefully good momentum from the last couple of results, the victory against Osasuna away and the draw against Manchester United. They'll take the performance, I think, against Manchester United, although it's not every day that you find a side that is as distraught, as disorganised as Man United to face. A side that's against Celta Vigo, a side that, they defeated last time out, of course, was a pretty feisty game. There were 2 red cards and it was a pretty big battle, really, on the field last time out in the Anoeta, but now it is a game at the Wanda Metropolitano. They sort of made their way back into good form in the league almost, after their Super Cup loss to Bilbao. Then, of course, they've won against Valencia at home, they won against Getafe at home. Yes, they lost to Levante, but, they simply rectified the course, I would say, by drawing against Manchester United in the Champions League, at least momentum-wise and morale-wise. That will boost their chances for the rest of the season. Sevilla playing against Real Betis, as I mentioned, chronologically that's the 3rd game happening. It's a Betis derby, it's a Sevilla derby. A side that, both sides that are producing good football in different variants. Sevilla, I think they're producing some solid defending. They're the strongest in the league and definitely have a good shape about them. And Betis are one of the most exciting sides, I would say, in Europe, not just in Spain at the moment. They just qualified to the next round of 16 in the Europa League, and they definitely producing a brand of football that is really, really apt with La Liga and what you expect La Liga to be about: beautiful, fluent, and free-flowing attack in football. But obviously defense is a big problem for them. They conceded 30 goals. There are like 4 or 5 sides or 6 sides beyond them or behind them at the table that conceded less goals, so that might be a worry for a side that wants to clinch into a Champions League spot this season, which I think they will do. I think they'll end up qualifying to the Champions League somehow. The 4 points gap between them and Barcelona is, I think, pretty good, and with the games coming for Betis, I think it's pretty decent chance that they can qualify to the Champions League. Finishing off, of course, with Barcelona in the top table. They play against Bilbao, and they seem to be on a real ascendancy at the moment. Yes, they have lost to Athletic Bilbao the last couple of times they met, or they dropped points against them in the league the last time they met. They lost against them in the Copa del Rey, and definitely is a side that seems to be a thorn in Barcelona's side for the last couple of years. But again, with Barcelona now, I think, improving dramatically from the early goings of the season. The victory against Napoli in the Europa League is a big testament for that. The victory against Valencia is a big testament of that. The latest performances, the victory against Atletico Madrid. Even the draw against Espanyol didn't feel like a loss because it was a great performance and Luc de Jong salvaged the victory for them, although that had its negative connotations anyway. Barcelona, again, with the improvements that they make in the signings that are getting on the score sheet, that are helping Adama Traore, scoring, Aubameyang, really finding a groove with Barcelona, it seems, as a striker, unlike his time with Arsenal, is really flowing well with the Catalan club, with the players behind him, Pedri and Gavi and Frankie de Jong, and all of Barcelona really seeming rejuvenated from the early goings of the season. A game that's going to be tough. It's going to be pretty tactical. It's going to be all about, I think, details and tactical tropes from both sides. Marcelino is a good coach. He's a really smart coach and knows what to do. Xavi is getting to the grips of it and really starting to command himself as a great coach at Barcelona. It's going to be a great game to watch in La Liga. And as you mentioned, to finish off the round, it is Granada Cadiz on Monday. Hopefully it will be another enjoyable weekend in Spain. To Germany, and round 24 of the Bundesliga kicks off this weekend with Hoffenheim playing Stuttgart on Friday, Union Berlin playing Mainz on Saturday, Bayer Leverkusen playing Arminia Bielefeld, Borussia Dortmund playing Borussia Mönchengladbach playing Wolfsburg, Freiburg playing Hertha Berlin, Greuther Fürth hosting Köln, Eintracht Frankfurt hosting Bayern. All of these games on Saturday. On Sunday it is Bochum versus Leipzig and Borussia Dortmund against Augsburg. It has been a relatively, let's say, ups and downs week for German football in Europe. Leipzig qualified in the Europa League. Dortmund didn't. It's not exactly the kind of performance that you expect from Dortmund. And we start with them, really, because I think they're a really interesting case at the moment. After the victory against Borussia Mönchengladbach, we said, okay, maybe this is going to be a good momentum booster ahead of the game against Rangers. It turned out it wasn't. They did the same mistakes. They committed the same sort of errors that they usually do defensively, and it doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, because Borussia Dortmund are not a side that is usually known for a defensive resiliency. At least in a certain period of time it was, but now it's a side that is known to have young players, exciting players up front, and known to have Haaland up front as a striker that everybody wants. But I think defensively nobody wants anything of Dortmund, and the signing of Süle, I think, might not even add real value defensively to them. It's just maybe a body that will technically be better than some of the players they had. Mats Hummels had a shocker against Rangers, and he's continuing to be played and continuing to be, a starter for Borussia Dortmund. And he looked good in the game against Mönchengladbach, but it's because it was Mönchengladbach. It was a side that is falling off a cliff and living in his own crisis anyway. The game against Augsburg is going to be hard. Still no Haaland on the side. Still not exactly sure whether he's going to be returning to the game or not. It's definitely a turbulent time for Borussia Dortmund at the moment. Yes, there are 6 points of Bayern. It's not exactly an unassailable gap, but I feel like Borussia Dortmund have shot themselves in the foot too many times this season to try and mount any real challenge. But again, the season is still pretty long. Let's say there's still like 10 weeks now in the season, and definitely Borussia Dortmund will try and fight till the end to get that title off Bayern. Speaking of Bayern, of course, they go away to Eintracht Frankfurt, a side that defeated them at home, caused them their only home defeat this season in the Bundesliga, a side that defeated them 5-1 back in 2019, where, of course, that result launched a whole, was the catalyst for a whole change in the Bayern squad, of course, and famously Hansi Flick took over, and the rest is history after that. This is a game that I really proceed with caution, because the latest results for Bayern Munich away from home are not exactly encouraging, to say the very least. I mean, Bayern Munich defeated them 3-0 away from home back in 2018. Then they lost against them 5-1. Then they lost against them again, 2-1 last season. And it definitely sounds like a game that is more intricate for Bayern Munich than Borussia Dortmund facing Bayer Leverkusen or Borussia Mönchengladbach. For some reason, Frankfurt seem to be very rejuvenated when they play Bayern in the last couple of years, and this is going to be no different. They defeated Bayern in the last 2 games they had, away and home, which I think some of the rarest things that happen in the Bundesliga. It's like Dortmund beating Bayern for a couple of games in a row in the Bundesliga. That doesn't happen very often. Frankfurt seem to be a black sheep for Bayern as of late, particularly in their home. And obviously this one is going to be another hard trip for Bayern, with still players missing. Goretzka thankfully returned to training, as well as Manuel Neuer, but obviously I don't think any of them are going to be featured in this game in particular, or at least they're not going to get the start, particularly Goretzka, who just returned from that long injury layoff. Hopefully he returns alongside Kimmich, and the midfield would return to its proper ways. I mean, Kimmich alone can't really do much. He needs Goretzka to join him. I mean, he's a good player, he's a great player, Kimmich, but alongside Goretzka, he's much, much better in the midfield and in terms of controlling that game. It's going to be a tough game again against Frankfurt, a side that is still within a shout of the European spots. Yes, it's 6 points between them and Leipzig at 4th, but again, nothing is really impossible in the Bundesliga. Any result would flip this around and will get them close. Obviously, they will have to play for the victory, not just against Bayern, but also to get themselves closer to that 4th position. As I mentioned elsewhere, Borussia Mönchengladbach will face VfL Wolfsburg. That's a game between two sides that are really in the mud at the moment, 12th and 13th. Bayer Leverkusen looking to rebound from the loss against Mainz at the weekend last time out against Arminia Bielefeld. But again, Arminia Bielefeld could throw some shockers of their own as of late. I mean, just as recently they defeated Union Berlin, a side that is competing for those European spots as well, and defeated defeated Eintracht Frankfurt away from home 2-0 as recently as late January. And then you have, of course, Union Berlin facing Mainz, a game between two sides that are really, really good this season and two sides that want to get into those European spots. Köln face Greuther Fürth. Hopefully it's going to be a victory for Köln, just for my boy, the Tunisian player Elias Skiri, and Leipzig, fresh of their victory against Sociedad in the Europa League. They will face VfL Bochum, and they will try and get that third spot and get closer to that third spot, hopefully, if Leverkusen drop some points in their game. It's going to be another exciting weekend in the Bundesliga, and it's going to be another great anticipated weekend, particularly for me. I want to watch that game between Eintracht Frankfurt and Bayern Munich to see how Bayern Munich will sort of perform, hopefully with some players returning to full fitness, of course. Moving on to Italy, of course, and it is a pretty interesting start to the weekend in the round 27 in Serie A. It in fact starts with both sides of Milan playing on Friday, as Milan host Udinese and Genoa host Inter Milan. This is going to be a really great Friday, I think. This might be a defining Friday in terms of the title race. Milan against Udinese, a side that is, 16th on the table. The difference is pretty big in terms of the points gap and everything else. But obviously that doesn't mean anything when the game is on. Milan, they'd drawn against Salernitana last time out, but they were bailed out of it once Sassuolo defeated Inter Milan, and of course handed them to remain on the top of the table in Serie A. Again, these two games are linked intrinsically to each other. When you talk about Milan, you talk about Inter Milan, because both games are in the same sort of objective, which is getting into the top of the table for both sides. For Inter Milan, as you mentioned, after a rough week, after a loss against Liverpool, a loss against Sassuolo, they come in with this game, and obviously their eyes is on the semi-final of the Italian Cup, coming in the midweek, of course, and they play Inter. That's why they're playing both their games early on Friday. Again, for AC Milan, this is all about winning. Of course, they need only to win. They don't need to care about the result for Inter Milan, who have a game in hand, which might be an advantage for them. But definitely, as far as Milan is concerned, they can only care about winning. They're not exactly going to be missing loads of players. They still they have Benassa suspended for this one. Simon Kjaer is out, and Ibrahimovic is not going to be available. But I don't think they need to worry too much against Udinese. Again, a side that is not in the best form. They only won once out of the last 8 games in Serie A. They were eliminated out of the cup against Lazio, of course, back in early January. So their form is not exactly the best there is as far as Udinese are concerned. For the other game between Genoa and Inter, that's a much, I'm not going to say much tougher game, because technically Genoa are 19th with 16 points, and they cannot pose a real threat to Inter Milan, but so did Sassuolo last week. They were not exactly posing a real threat to Inter Milan, although they're a really good team, yet they still defeated Inter Milan at home in the Giuseppe Meazza. So Inter Milan have only one thought about their game in their minds. Obviously, it's winning that game, and I'm not even caring if they win it in the biggest result or not. They just need to win. Although their latest form against Genoa in the last 4 games in the Serie A, last 5 games, in fact, is really, really good. Technically, realistically speaking, the last time Genoa defeated Inter Milan, that was back in 2018. That was like in February 2018, and since then Genoa didn't even score a goal against Inter Milan in the next 8 games in Serie A. Inter Milan defeated them with 5-0, 4-0 twice, 4-0 3 times, 3-0 twice, and 2-0. It's an absolute, I think, one-sided game as of late, but definitely the circumstances for this one are much, much different, with Inter Milan urgent and in need of a win against Genoa, of course, to keep the pressure on AC Milan, and hopefully with their game in hand they will win and they will get some serious advantage in the title race. On Saturday, Salernitana face Bologna. Empoli host Juventus, of course, who after a rough midweek, drawing against Villarreal in a game where I'm still insisting that they didn't deserve the draw, really. Villarreal were the better side. They just had the game plan, fell to their lap after the opportunity to score the first goal as early as the first minute. Again, against Empoli, a side that is dogged. They're not exactly in the best positions to challenge Juventus, but again, you don't know what can happen in Serie A. They're 13th on the table, but they can still put a threat to Juventus. Juventus, who've drawn twice in the last couple of games in Serie A, and who says that they can't draw on a third game in a row after the game against Torino and against Atalanta as well. Sassuolo host Fiorentina on Saturday as well. Torino host Cagliari on Sunday. Hellas Verona host Venezia on Sunday. Spezia host Roma on Sunday for Jose Mourinho. This is an important game, I suppose, because Roma needs some serious momentum in Serie A. The last 3 games for them have been draws, and have been draws with really bad scenarios, almost each of them. Against Sassuolo and Hellas Verona, they come back from 2-0. Against Genoa, they have players sent off. And they draw goalless. It's definitely not the best of times for Mourinho, and an elimination from the cup against Inter Milan, added more, I think, to their woes in the Serie A. Lazio versus Napoli to finish things off on Sunday. It's a pretty good game, really, but again, Napoli seem to be the side that needs more of it, although Lazio, of course, have stakes to play for when they are playing against Napoli at home, because they want to stay close to that 4th spot race with Atalanta and Juventus, and depending on the results on the weekend, maybe Lazio will have some sort of ground to make up, or they will have an opportunity to leap over Atalanta at the very least in the table. And speaking of those side, Atalanta of course play against Sampdoria on Monday. Hopefully for them, that game will be all about finishing and ending the the streak of bad results that they've been having as of late in terms of Serie A. Obviously, European wise, they qualified to the next round of the Europa League, but the Serie A, they lost 2 out of the last 3. They've drawn 3 out of the last 5. So it's really about, trying to regain some serious form for Gianpiero Gasperini's boys. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching/listening. I was with HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications. And of course, follow us on social media and listen on every platform available. Until next time, I was with HOD of the PSP. Take care and goodbye.
Closed doors, I'm a fool for your love.